Happy Monday, March 9th, 2026. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about today in comic book news. We've got a couple X-Men titles to talk about, one being Cyclops, which I really loved, and then a new X-Men title coming to comics soon. We've got some big news for Batman as well in terms of the regular universe Batman and Absolute Batman. There's some really cool Star Wars comics coming out. All that and more. Let's just jump right into it. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is this. After 83 years, Batman is finally losing one of his most important pieces of lore. This Matt Fraction run has been great. This is the regular universe, our, Earth Prime Batman. Basically what's going on here is that we have some villains who have now gained, positions of authority, and they're trying to flush out the Bat family and use their knowledge of them to target them in a specific way that has caused them to have to abandon their hideouts, essentially. One of those being the Bat Cave. So let me read this real quick. The GCPD launches an all-out assault on the Bat family. After making a sinister deal with Mayor Isley, Poison Ivy, Commissioner Vandal Savage initiates Operation Peregrine, sending his brutal Tuco squads across Gotham City in a singular mission: bring in the Batman. Batman and his team must destroy and abandon their hideouts, safeguard their data, and escape the long arm of the law. But not everyone will make it safely through the night. So the Bat Cave has been part of Batman lore since the Golden Age. We all know the Batcave. There's been iterations of it below, of course, Wayne Manor. We've seen it in the live action movies, the Christopher Nolan movies, and all of them, really. Like I said, it's a staple. It's got the T-Rex and the giant penny and all that good stuff. In fact, this article actually gives a little bit more information on that. The Batcave has been a staple of Batman's iconography since 1943, when it was first introduced in a radio serial based on the DC Comics character created 4 years earlier by writer Bill Finger and artist Bob Kane. Again, 1943 is the Golden Age. This is the beginning of Batman, the beginning of superhero comics, really. And the Batcave has been there since then. I thought it was also interesting that it was actually introduced in a radio serial and not in the pages of the comics itself. I think that's interesting to note. I didn't know that until reading this article. But as always with this and anything that happens in comics, things return to the status quo. Don't get me wrong, we have seen things. The main universe, the 616 universe, Gwen Stacy has not made a comeback. Now, we have had Gwen Stacy's from all over the multiverse, so that character didn't go away, but the 616 Gwen Stacy, as far as I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, and please do, she's never come back. We did see a glimpse of her when they had that event where the Celestial was inside of everybody's mind and making them see things. We saw the ghost of Gwen Stacy talking to Peter Parker, but she's never returned. So there have been some things that have stayed canon and stayed a part of the history of the comics forever. However, most things come back. Another writer will bring the Batcave back. We all love it. We love it for the nostalgia. This is a cool, this is an interesting, story. But like I said, it'll come back. But let me know if you think this is a cool direction for the comics. Let me know if you're enjoying Matt Fraction's Batman run. And let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Now we're going to talk about Absolute Batman and this image right here, this nightmare fuel thing. This is the Absolute Scarecrow. Now, we did see Absolute Scarecrow in the blades of Batman on one of the Absolute Batman covers. Here we go. So you can see him with the button eyes and everything in the reflection on the blades. And this is his, suit that he's wearing here. There you go. And then here's that. So like I said, nightmare fuel. But this gives us a little better look at the Absolute Scarecrow overall, with the patchwork and the button eyes and the mouth that looks sewn together. This looks menacing, and this is an absolutely scary Jonathan Crane. They're already villains, and Scarecrow himself is already, a pretty dark villain in the main continuity. But to have a darker version of him, it must be hard to dream that up. But they've done it. I've enjoyed all the Absolute titles. However, I will say that my favorite is Absolute Batman, probably followed by Absolute Wonder Woman. And the more of these iconic characters and villains, the rogues gallery, if you will, that we get to see in the Absolute universe, the better. And, we do have a new an event coming up, which this article does talk about as well, which is going to see a lot of the characters come together, and we're going to get new stories out of there. We're going to get the Absolute Green Arrow, and we're going to get a title dedicated to Absolute Catwoman. So that's great as well. And so we're starting to see this Absolute universe expand And that's really exciting. And you know, they have to do it right. And I talked about it in an article that I read last week in last week's comic book news, that they're trying to keep the Absolute Universe simple and straightforward. And I think what they don't want is to have really convoluted storylines and too many characters and overload it, and to have it kind of peter out like the, you know, Ultimate Universe ended up doing over at Marvel. If you remember, the Ultimate Universe at Marvel was a huge hit, almost as big as the Absolute Universe is now. Ultimate was, when it first came out, the first iteration of Ultimate Universe, not this latest one, because this is us going back to the Ultimate Universe that just happened recently. I'm talking about when it originally came out, Ultimate Spider-Man #1, you know, Mark Bagley and everything on that title, and Brian Michael Bendis is the writer. Great creative team. That was huge when it came out back in the day. It's similar to what's happening with the Absolute Universe now. So, but they don't want it to go the way of the Ultimate Universe, you know, that it ultimately went, which is that recently the comic sales for it weren't as good, and it didn't have the ending I think it deserved. So I think this is great. I'm excited to see this, and yeah, I'll be seeing this character in my nightmares. Let me know if you think this is a, you know, a cool direction for the Absolute Scarecrow. If you're excited for this, if you're still reading Absolute Batman and you think it's held up after all this time and it's still just as good after multiple years, let me know all that in the comments. All right, let's talk about Cyclops. This new cover for Cyclops #4, which hasn't come out yet, looks absolutely amazing. He's geared up. He's got this weapon that it looks like somehow is channeling his eye beams into, or maybe not. Maybe it just shoots red lasers as well. But it looks very reminiscent of his eye beams, even with like the trailing smoke in red, you know? And it would be very cool if he somehow found a way to wield a weapon that he could channel his, you know, kinetic beams into. Again, speculation, but anyway, all the, you know, everything that's going on in this cover looks amazing. The artist on this title has done great. The writer has done great. And I loved the first issue, and I got some feedback from, you know, the community and got some comments from people saying that they also really enjoyed the first issue of Cyclops. I'll say this again, I've said it in other videos. I think this is a good jumping on point for Marvel. I think they have a lot of things that have just come to an end with the Ultimate Universe, with the Age of Revelation for the X-Men. They're starting a new era for the Avengers, I believe, as well. So I like when both publishers are doing a great job. And I know that DC has really destroyed Marvel in terms of comic book sales in this past year, and I'm very happy that, you know, DC has had so much success. But I think it's better when both publishers are doing amazing, because it just gives us more to read. Going back to Cyclops specifically, I want to remind everyone kind of what's going on here, but I don't want to go over like every single plot point. But there are these Reavers, as you can see here. This is very, you know, kind of scary stuff. A new iteration of enemies for the X-Men. And he ends up getting stranded near their base in the woods. And the big thing that happens here is that he loses his ruby quartz visor. As you can see here, it's broken. And then the full force of his beams is released. And the Reavers are aware that he's there because they see his beam. And now it's going to be them versus him. And he's going to be severely handicapped because, you know, if he tries to open his eyes to look at anything, he's going to obliterate it, which is pretty crazy and pretty cool. And it puts Cyclops out of his element. And I love Cyclops as a character. He does not get enough time to shine, I think, in the comics. I would love a long-term ongoing Cyclops title. I think he's such a cool X-Men. He has such an amazing tactical mind. There's a reason why he's the leader, because he, you know, he is a really great leader, and he has such a long history, storied history with the X-Men, actually even before Chris Claremont's run, because he was one of the original X-Men. So he's an OG. And I think that the more Cyclops we can get in our lives, the better. And a lot of people, you know, that I talked to about this first issue said it was really, really great. So if you want to jump in somewhere on Cyclops and the X-Men, do it right here. This has been awesome. Here's the cover for the second issue, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, if you're reading Marvel right now and you're reading this comic, I want to hear from you. Let me know, you know, what you thought of it, and if you think it's good, and if you're excited for the future. Let me know what your thoughts are, you know, overall on this story in the comments down below. The X-Men begin a bold new era, and we have an exclusive preview. So, like I've talked about, good jumping on point for Marvel Comics right now. We're seeing something I think is a really cool idea here for the X-Men. Now, it's going to be replacing the Exceptional X-Men book, I believe, but it's going to be written by the same writer, Eve Ewing. And I want to set up what the premise of this is, because I think it's pretty cool and it gets me excited to see this going forward. So we have a new kind of headquarters slash school going on for the X-Men, which is awesome because we're going to see a return to the X-Men being like a school, like we got in like Grant Morrison's New X-Men, for example, or like we saw in the Fox X-Men movies where, you know, at the mansion, which was on Gray Malkin Lane, right? That was Xavier's school for the gifted youngsters, Gray Malkin Lane. The professor there really was teaching young mutants how to survive in the world and teaching them general knowledge as well, of course, and making sure they made best use of their powers. And I think that's a classic concept with the X-Men. And we've really diverged from that for a long time with Krakoa, which is fine because the Krakoa era was pretty cool. But I like the fact that we're going to kind of be returning to our roots in a way, but with a real twist on what it is. So I mentioned that the mansion was at Gray Malkin Lane. Well, this new school is going to be at Gray Matter Lane. Now, Gray Matter is of course, a reference to your brain, because that's what they basically call the material of your brain is gray matter. The reason it's called that is because it is a place that exists inside of your mind, right? And the telepaths of the X-Men, specifically Emma Frost, have created this mind palace, if you will, where we can resume the education of the X-Men. And as you can see, what will happen for the X-Men that possess this telepathic key is that a door will open for them, and the door will look different for each one of them. It's specific to who they are as a character. You'll enter this school, this compound, whatever you want to call it, telepathically through that door. Now, there's also some interesting stuff here because she does mention you should anticipate time dilation. Now, time dilation, this is going to be something along the lines of kind of what happened in Inception, I believe. And this is a little bit of speculation here, but where time either moves slower or faster within this like telepathic school. And by the way, here's a look at some of the stuff here. We have libraries. We have, she says, sub-zero training environment, cafeteria, subterranean environment, subatomic training environment, all kinds of different stuff, which I'm wondering how it's going to work here too. Because I mean, if it's in your mind, you could practically do anything. Are there going to be limitations? Are their powers going to be exactly the same as they are outside of this mind palace kind of thing? You know, like we'll have to read this to find out. But you know, Kurt kind of jokes that X-Men are safe nowhere, and this is nowhere. So maybe that's the only place they're safe. This is really cool. If you are going to read this comic and pick this up, I believe it comes out next week. Let me know. I want to hear your thoughts on this story in the comments down below. Okay, let's talk about Star Wars comics now. We got Mace Windu confirmed to return in pre-Phantom Menace Star Wars story. So there have been some really cool Star Wars comics that have come out over the years. Do not sleep on Star Wars comic books. But this is going to be pre-Phantom Menace Mace Windu, and this is going to be an early on Mace Windu. I think I believe when he first becomes a Jedi Knight. I don't know about you, but I always loved this character. The purple lightsaber is awesome. Hopefully we get some insight into how that lightsaber, or why his lightsaber is purple. If there's already a story out there that lets us know why, I would love to know about that, so let me know. But I really also want to talk about other Star Wars comics that are really great and that are still canon, specifically some omnibuses that I have, like this one right here, Dr. Aphra. So when I first saw this book, I was like, well, this doesn't look good at all. I mean, what is this character? I've never heard of her. I didn't know the like elevator pitch for this, which is that this is like Indiana Jones in the Star Wars universe. And that is so cool. This character, Dr. Aphra, is going around finding these like ancient technological artifacts from past civilizations. Because remember, like in the Star Wars galaxies, you know, advanced civilization has been around for a very long time, and some technologies, some, you know, mythical technologies have come and gone, and civilizations, and there's all kinds of different myths and stuff and having to do with the Force. Anyway, this is so cool, and it's written so well, and there's crossover with Jason Aaron's Star Wars, which is really amazing as well, and there's crossover with Darth Vader. Both of these Darth Vader omnibuses are awesome. I mean, most of like the mainline Star Wars comic books have been really good, especially the stuff from Marvel, and these omnibuses, I cannot recommend them more. So like I said, all that's to say, don't sleep on Star Wars comics. They're really cool, and it's great to get into. Now, some of it isn't canon. We have the Legends stuff. If you ever see Star Wars stuff that says like Legends on it, that means it's no longer canon. I believe like the Old Republic stuff isn't canon anymore. Anyway, let me read a little bit about what's going on here. The official solicit text for Star Wars Hyperspace Stories Mace from Dark Horse Comics reads, after bungling a sensitive assignment, a young Mace Windu is sent to protect an alien king. This punishment becomes a daring rescue after the monarch is abducted. and the Jedi Knight is forced into the center of the conspiracy surrounding scheming politicians and ruthless revolutionaries. With danger and betrayal lurking around every corner, Windu must unravel the conspiracy before the planet is engulfed in civil war. Who knew diplomacy could be so thrilling? Anyway, that all sounds really cool. I love the character of Mace Windu. I like Star Wars, comics in general. Like I said, don't sleep on them. If you've read some of those Star Wars omnibuses that I've talked about, let me know. If you're interested in this comic coming out and you're excited for new Mace Windu lore to become a part of, canon Star Wars, let me know all that in the comments down below. All right, let's take a look at the new comic books coming out March 11th, 2026, this Wednesday. We've got Absolute Batman number 18, the continuation of the story with the Absolute Poison Ivy. This left off in a really interesting place. I am so excited for this. Goes without saying, Absolute Batman has been amazing. We have Absolute Green Lantern. I did read the first issue of this and I want to continue with it. Green Lantern is my favorite part of DC lore. If you're reading this, let me know. I've heard some mixed reviews, but I want to know if you're reading this and you like this, because I really want to give it a shot. We also have Transformers, which has been amazing. Again, another one that goes without saying, and this cover looks absolutely beautiful. We've got Action Comics, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm not reading this because I'm still trying to read through the original IDW run that has been going on for so long, like everything that existed in the modern run before Jason Aaron. Spawn, X-Men United coming out this week. Black Cat 8 looks like featuring Mary Jane, who is now Venom. Bleeding Hearts from Vertigo. Remember, this is like the relaunch of Vertigo from DC Comics. Some of these like darker, more horror-based stories. We also have Venom number 255, and then this Emperor Aquaman. That looks interesting as well. Looks like Starro is on the cover there. Magic and Colossus. I haven't read this yet, but I want to. I love these two characters, specifically Magic, I really love. Green Lantern Corps. Sirens Love Hurts number 2, which is I like the Sirens. It's, Black Cat, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. That's definitely interesting. Jessica Jones Alias here as well. That could be very interesting. Red Band, this is number 1. We have Storm number 2, Earth's Mightiest Mutant. I love that title and I love the character of Storm. One of my favorite X-Men as well. Oh, the Imperial Guardians. Hype for this book. It's Dan Abnett, the creator of the Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one that we know from the movies, and this is a new Guardians team and a new book written by him, and he's also written a lot of really cool Warhammer 40k novels. I love the author. I cannot hype this book up enough. Please go pick up this book. I want to see this, go for a long run and see what Dan Abnett can bring to Marvel Comics, once again. Rogue Sun still going. That's great to see, and some other stuff here, but I think I covered most of the big ones. Let's move on to the omnibuses. Okay, we have the Avengers No Surrender omnibus. I remember when this was coming out in comic book stores and I read the very beginning of it. I think it's a very cool concept, at least a kind of cool concept. And I think this is an omni that I actually do want to pick up. Let me know if you liked this No Surrender Avengers event and if this omnibus is going to be worth picking up. We have Catwoman from the New 52. I cannot get enough of New 52 omnibuses. I love that era, but overall it's these two comics coming out from Marvel and DC that are the main two on my radar. So let me know if you're excited for either of these omnis coming out or any of the comic books that we talked about that are coming out this week. Let me know your thoughts on this story and what comics you're going to be picking up in the comments down below. All right, that's it for this week's comic book news, March 9th, 2026. Let me know if there's anything major that I missed in this video. Let me know your thoughts on the different stories that I talked about. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.